There's a moment in every person's life when things just snap. For me, it happened when I was standing in the kitchen, making my usual morning coffee, and the doorbell rang. It wasn't just any doorbell. This one seemed to ring in a way that echoed in my chest. Like a warning. I didn't know what I expected when I opened the door, but it sure as hell wasn't what I saw. Standing there, with an envelope in hand, was a delivery driver. He didn't say much. He just handed it to me and left. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But then, I looked down at the envelope. The name written in bold letters on the front was mine. It felt like a weight, like this wasn't just any delivery. Something was off. I didn't hesitate. I ripped it open. Inside, there was nothing but a single piece of paper. No fancy letterhead, no explanation. Just one line written in thick black ink. I'm not coming back. I stared at those words, trying to process them. A wave of confusion hit me first. Then anger. Then a quiet disbelief that I couldn't shake off. My mind raced, but it didn't make any sense. Not a single word. My wife, Lena, had been gone for days, and at first, I didn't think much of it. She'd told me she was taking a break and had left with nothing but a vague explanation. It wasn't unusual. She had her own way of doing things, her own space, her own life. At least, that's how I justified it to myself. But this letter, it didn't feel like a simple note from a wife needing time apart. It felt like a statement. A final one. I hadn't seen her face in days, hadn't heard her voice in what felt like weeks. The silence was suffocating, but I kept telling myself everything was fine. I wasn't prepared for this. Who would be? 1 minute, everything was normal. Well, as normal as it could be. The next, I'm holding this scrap of paper, feeling the weight of something breaking. But the real shock came when I started putting pieces together. You know how when you look back, you can always see the signs you missed? The little things? They become so obvious once you know what to look for. Her behavior had been changing for months. Subtle at first, then more noticeable. She'd start staying out longer, taking random trips to see friends, without telling me where, acting secretive about her phone. The one thing I refused to see was her eyes. Those eyes, once full of warmth, had started to feel distant, cold even. At first, I thought it was just stress. She was tired. We were both tired. Work was getting to her. But that was the lie I told myself to stay comfortable, to stay numb. And in that numbness, I let her drift away. But this letter, it wasn't just about her leaving. It was a message, a declaration. I had to face the truth now, whether I was ready or not. I stood there, gripping that piece of paper, trying to think straight, trying to make sense of it. It felt like someone had just thrown me into the ocean with no life raft, no direction, just the cold water pulling me under. Before I could process any more, my phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. It was her, Lena. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at her name flashing on the screen. I didn't want to answer. I couldn't answer. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to even begin? But before I could let the call go to voicemail, I pressed the button, and the moment I heard her voice, it was like everything else around me disappeared. "William," she said, her voice shaky. "I need to talk to you." There was something about the way she said it that made my blood run cold. It wasn't the usual tone I'd heard from her. This was different. There was fear in her voice, something I hadn't heard before. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound calm, though my voice betrayed me. I don't know how to tell you this," she started, but her words trailed off, like she was choking on them. "I don't know how you'll take it, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." My stomach twisted into a knot. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. "I've been seeing someone else," she said, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I couldn't stop myself. It felt like the world stopped spinning for a moment. I couldn't breathe. "What? Who? How long?" "I'm so sorry, William," she interrupted. "But I need to be honest with you. I've already made up my mind. I'm leaving. I need to go." I just stood there, stunned. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was shattering in front of me. It wasn't just that she was leaving. It was that she had already made her decision. And me? I was nothing more than a distant memory. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stood there, holding the phone to my ear, my mind reeling, my body frozen in place. The words she had just said hung in the air like a cold wind that I couldn't escape from. She wasn't coming back. And that's when it all hit me, the weight of everything. The lies. The secrets. The betrayal. I sat in silence for what felt like hours after the call ended. My phone was still pressed to my ear, but I couldn't hear anything. My mind was racing, trying to process everything Lena had just said. "I've been seeing someone else." The words echoed in my head over and over again, each time more devastating than the last. I couldn't shake the image of her telling me that she had already made her choice, that I was no longer part of her life. I tried to call her back, but the phone just rang and rang, no answer. I texted her, pleading for an explanation, but the dots never turned blue. I was left in limbo, with nothing but the silence of my home and the aching void in my chest. It's funny, you know, how you can go through life thinking you have everything figured out. You tell yourself that your marriage is strong, that your love is unshakable, that the life you've built together is untouchable. But in the blink of an eye, everything can fall apart, and you're left holding the pieces, trying to make sense of it all. I walked around the house, unsure of what to do next. I found myself in the living room, staring at the couch where we had spent so many nights together, laughing, talking, living. Now it just felt empty, cold. The walls seemed to close in on me, and I suddenly felt suffocated by everything. I needed answers. I needed closure. I couldn't just let this happen without understanding why. There had to be something I missed, some sign that I had ignored, some reason for her leaving that I could understand. I had to know if it was all my fault. If I had been too blind, too busy with my own world to see the cracks forming beneath the surface. I grabbed my coat and walked out the door, unsure of where I was going, but knowing I needed to do something. I couldn't sit still, couldn't let this moment define me. I had to face it head on, even if it meant facing her. I drove to the park where we used to go, back when things felt simple, back when we would sit on the bench by the lake and talk for hours. The place hadn't changed, but everything else had. As I sat there, trying to gather my thoughts, I got another text. This time, it wasn't from Lena, it was from her best friend, Chloe. The message was short, cryptic, and completely unexpected. "You need to know the truth. Meet me at the usual spot in an hour." I stared at the screen, my heart racing. What could Chloe possibly know? Was this the explanation I had been waiting for? The truth that Lena wouldn't tell me herself? I had no choice. I had to go. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I needed to understand. My mind was spinning as I drove to the location Chloe had mentioned, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. The usual spot was a quiet cafe on the corner of Maple Street, one of those small, unassuming places that no one really paid attention to. It was our spot, where we used to meet for coffee after long days, before everything started to unravel. When I walked in, Chloe was already sitting at a table in the back, her eyes darting around nervously as if she were waiting for something. When she saw me, her face softened, but there was an unmistakable sadness in her expression. I took a seat across from her, feeling the tension between us grow by the second. She didn't speak right away, but I could tell she was struggling with how to start. Finally, she looked at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to tell you," she began. "But you deserve to know what's really been going on. Lena, she's been seeing someone else for months. It's not just a fling, William. It's serious." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. My chest tightened, and I could feel my throat closing up. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand answers, but I stayed silent, waiting for Chloe to continue. "She never planned to tell you," Chloe said, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't sit back and let her lie to you. I knew you deserved the truth, no matter how much it hurt." I felt a rush of anger, a wave of betrayal so intense it almost made me dizzy. How could she do this? How could Lena, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I had loved, betray me like this? But then another thought hit me. Who was she with? "Who is it, Chloe?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "Who's the guy?" Chloe hesitated, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. "I don't want to be the one to tell you this," she said. "But it's someone you know." My heart stopped. The world around me seemed to freeze. "What do you mean? Someone I know? Who?" Chloe took a deep breath, as if she was bracing herself for the impact. "It's Max. Max." The name hit me like a punch in the gut. Max was my best friend. The guy I'd trusted for years, the one I had laughed with, shared secrets with, built memories with. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Max and Lena? No. You're lying," I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. "This can't be true." But Chloe didn't back down. "I'm sorry, William. It's the truth. They've been seeing each other for months." And Lena, she's not coming back to you. Not now, not ever. I felt the ground beneath me shift. The world felt unreal, like I was trapped in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My best friend, the one person I thought would never betray me, was the one who had stolen everything from me. And Lena? She had made her choice. I could barely hear the words coming from Chloe as I tried to process what she had just told me. Max, of all people, my best friend, the guy I trusted more than anyone else in the world. I felt like I had been hit by a truck, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me, crushing me from every angle. Max and Lena, the two people I thought I knew better than anyone else. Together, behind my back, behind my trust. How long has this been going on? My voice sounded foreign to me, like it wasn't even mine. The anger inside me had morphed into something cold, something bitter. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that they had been seeing each other, or the fact that Chloe, of all people, was the one to tell me. I don't know exactly, Chloe replied, looking down at her hands. But it's been a while. Longer than you think. She's been hiding it from everyone, but I couldn't watch you keep believing the lie. You deserve to know the truth, even if it destroys you. I shook my head, disbelief still clouding my mind. But why? Why would she do this? Why Max? That's what I don't get either, Chloe said, her voice barely audible. Lena always talked about how important you were to her. She said you were the one person she couldn't imagine her life without. But I guess that changed. She paused, her eyes meeting mine, filled with regret. I'm sorry, William. I never wanted to be the one to hurt you, but she's not who you think she is. The word stung. She's not who you think she is. I felt something inside me snap at the truth of it. I had spent all this time thinking I knew Lena, thinking I knew our marriage. But now, everything was coming undone, and I was left with nothing but the wreckage. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, drawing a few glances from the people around us. Chloe flinched, but I didn't care. I had to leave. I needed to get out of there, away from her, away from the cafe, away from the lies. William, wait. Chloe called after me, but I didn't turn back. I was done with the questions. I was done with the answers that only left me more broken. I walked out of the cafe, my head spinning. The air outside was crisp, but it did nothing to clear the fog in my mind. I barely even remembered getting in my car, but somehow I ended up on the road, driving aimlessly. Where was I going? What was I even trying to do? I couldn't stop thinking about Max, who had always been there for me. We'd shared everything, our dreams, our fears, our worst mistakes. We were family, not just friends. And now, here I was, driving around, haunted by the thought of him in my home, with my wife, my Lena. I don't know how long I drove, but eventually, I pulled into a parking lot at the edge of town. The headlights of my car illuminated the empty space in front of me, but it felt like the whole world had gone dark. I didn't want to go back home, not yet. I couldn't face that place, not with all the questions swirling in my head. I needed to think. I needed to make a plan. As I sat there, the minutes ticked by in a blur. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting another call from Chloe or maybe a text from Lena. But when I saw the name on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. It was from Max. For a moment, I couldn't bring myself to answer. What could he possibly say to me now? How could he even look me in the eye after everything? But the curiosity gnawed at me, and I pressed the green button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, before he finally picked up. William, Max's voice sounded low, strained, like he was holding something back. We need to talk. I could feel my pulse quicken. I didn't know whether to feel rage or fear, but I felt a cold knot in my stomach. You have 5 minutes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Make it count. I know you're angry, he began, sounding like he was trying to choose his words carefully. And you have every right to be. But I didn't want it to happen like this. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that didn't even feel like my own. You didn't want to hurt me? You've been sleeping with my wife for months, and you didn't want to hurt me? That's rich. There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought he had hung up. But then he spoke again, his voice thick with guilt. I never meant for it to go this far, he said. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. But, William, I love her. I'm sorry, but it's true. I've been in love with Lena for a while now. And I thought you might understand, eventually. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. You thought I'd understand? I spat. After everything we've been through? After everything we've built? She's not the same person anymore, Max said, his voice cracking. Neither of you are. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't stay away from her. I know it was wrong. I know I screwed up. But I don't know what else to say. I could feel the anger rising in me, like a tidal wave, threatening to consume me. You don't get to apologize, Max. Not after what you've done. Not after everything you've stolen from me. I know. I'm sorry, William, Max said again. And for the first time, I heard a genuine note of remorse in his voice. But it didn't matter. The damage had already been done. I didn't know what to say next. There was nothing left to say. So I ended the call. I sat there in my car, staring at the screen of my phone, replaying the conversation in my head. Max had done the unthinkable. He had taken the one person I trusted the most and betrayed me in the most brutal way. And Lena? She had made her choice. There was no going back from this. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Max's voice still echoed in my ears, each word like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. I love her. The phrase replayed over and over in my mind, each time more painful than the last. How could he say that? How could he betray me, not just as a friend, but as a man who trusted him with everything? I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the parking lot, to smash something in front of me just to release the pressure that was building inside me. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there in the dark, feeling completely hollow. Nothing made sense anymore. The life I thought I had, the love I thought was real, it was all gone. Max wasn't just my best friend. He was a part of me. He was the guy I called in the middle of the night when I needed someone to talk to. The guy who had my back no matter what. We had been through everything together. Heartbreak, success, failure, and joy. He knew me better than anyone. And now, I didn't know who he was anymore. And Lena, she had chosen him. I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like hours, but when I finally glanced at the clock, only 15 minutes had passed. 15 minutes of my life that felt like a lifetime. I knew I had to leave the car, go back to my empty house, face the reality of everything that had just been ripped away from me. But I couldn't move. The weight of it was suffocating. Eventually, I took a deep breath and started the car. I didn't know where I was going, but I drove. It wasn't until I found myself in front of my old childhood home that I realized what I was doing. I hadn't been back here in years, but something inside me had pulled me here. Maybe it was the familiarity, the sense of comfort from a time when life hadn't been so complicated. Or maybe, I thought, I needed a place to think, away from the suffocating silence of my house. I parked the car in the driveway and sat there for a moment, staring at the house. It hadn't changed much since I was a kid. Same old porch, same old swing in the yard. I remember sitting on that swing with my dad, watching the sunset, feeling like everything was going to be okay. But that was a long time ago. Things were different now. Life was different now. I walked up to the front door, hesitated for a moment, and then opened it. The familiar smell of old wood and musty air hit me as I stepped inside. The house was dark, but it didn't feel empty. It felt safe. I moved to the living room and sat down on the couch, looking around at the old pictures on the walls. My family, my childhood, a time before everything fell apart. But the peace didn't last. As soon as I sat there, my mind started racing again. Thoughts of Lena, of Max, of everything that had happened flooded my brain. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed all the signs? All the little moments where things had started to fall apart? I needed to talk to Lena. I needed answers. But part of me was terrified of what I might hear. What if she told me that everything Max said was true? That she really had chosen him over me? What if there was nothing left for me to hold on to? The phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my spiral. I looked down at the screen. This time, it was from an unknown number. I wasn't sure I wanted to answer, but my curiosity got the best of me. I picked up. William, a voice said. It was familiar, but strained. I knew immediately who it was. Lena. My heart pounded in my chest. Lena, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you want? I need to talk to you, she said, her voice shaky. There was a hesitation in her words, like she wasn't sure how to start, like she was afraid of what might come next. But I didn't have time for that. I didn't have time to listen to more half-truths, to try and patch up a life that was already shattered beyond repair. I don't know what to say to you anymore, Lena, I said, my anger bubbling up despite myself. What am I supposed to say after everything? After you chose him? There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, hear the weight of her emotions in each shaky exhale. Then, finally, she spoke. William, I didn't choose him. Not like you think. I didn't plan any of this. It just happened. I couldn't breathe. You're telling me it just happened? You didn't choose him? My voice was rising, and I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, threatening to spill over. But I couldn't let myself cry. Not yet. I didn't want it to happen like this, she continued, her voice trembling. I never meant to hurt you. But somewhere along the way, things changed. And I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to stop it. Stop it, I repeated, almost laughing in disbelief. You didn't know how to stop it? How could you let it get this far, Lena? How could you do this to me? To us? I'm sorry, she whispered, the words barely audible. I'm so sorry. I could feel the coldness inside me growing. Sorry didn't fix this. Sorry didn't change the fact that she had been with Max, that she had betrayed me in ways I could never have imagined. Sorry didn't bring back the life we once had. And the worst part? I knew I would never look at her the same way again. I can't do this anymore, Lena, I said, my voice flat. You've already made your choice. You and Max. I don't know what you've built together, but I'm done. I'm done being your second choice. I heard her gasp on the other end, but I didn't wait for her to respond. I hung up. The truth was staring me in the face now. I didn't need to hear any more. It was over. It had been over for a long time, even if I didn't want to admit it. The phone sat on the seat beside me, buzzing with the usual array of notifications. Lena's name was flashing on the screen, but I ignored it. I didn't want to hear what she had to say anymore. The call had confirmed what I already knew. There was no going back. She'd made her choice, and now it was my turn to make mine. I didn't realize I had been gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles started to hurt. I blinked hard, trying to shake the images of the past few days from my mind. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. Every conversation, every moment I'd spent with Lena, felt like a lie now. The warmth I thought I saw in her eyes. It was nothing more than an illusion. The love I thought we had was a game to her. And Max, my best friend, he was the one who had played me the longest. I didn't want to be weak. I didn't want to be the guy who begged for answers or groveled for affection. But it was hard not to feel like a fool. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? I slammed my fist on the steering wheel, and the sound of the horn blared in the empty parking lot, echoing into the night. I was angry, but it wasn't just at them. It was at myself. I had let this happen. I had been so consumed with my own life, my own routine, that I didn't see the cracks forming in my marriage until it was too late. I had trusted them, trusted Max, and this is what I got in return. I sat there for a long while, staring at the phone, willing myself to pick it up, to call her back and demand an explanation. But what was the point? What good would it do? Lena had already made it clear she wasn't coming back. She wasn't sorry enough to change anything, and neither was Max. I started the car again and drove, though I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to move, to clear my head, to not feel so suffocated by everything around me. The city's lights blurred as I drove through the streets, aimlessly navigating the maze of roads. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know if I even cared. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my trance. This time, it was a message from Chloe. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won out. You have to hear her out, William. I know you're hurt, but you don't understand everything. There's more to the story. I stared at the message for a while, reading it over and over, trying to make sense of what she was saying. More to the story? What could be more to the story than Lena cheating with my best friend? What more was there to understand? But Chloe had always been honest with me, even when it was uncomfortable. I didn't want to believe it, but there was a part of me that still trusted her. Maybe there was something I missed. Maybe there was something I could still salvage. With a deep breath, I typed a quick reply. What do you mean, more to the story? What aren't you telling me? I hit send before I could second-guess myself, and waited. A few minutes passed, then another message popped up. I can't tell you everything, but you need to meet me. I'll explain everything. There's more going on here than you think. Meet me tomorrow, at the cafe by your place. We need to talk. My heart started pounding again. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to walk away and not deal with any more drama. But another part of me, desperate for answers, desperate for closure, knew I had no choice but to show up. I replied, my hands shaking slightly as I typed. I'll be there. I need to know what's going on, Chloe. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I drove around until the streets grew quiet. until the darkness felt like it swallowed me whole. I wasn't sure what to expect when I met Chloe the next day, but I had to face the reality of everything. The lies, the betrayal, my wife and my best friend, both of them leaving me in the dust. I wasn't sure if I was ready for the truth, but I knew I couldn't keep running from it. The following day, I found myself sitting in the same cafe where Lena and I used to come for coffee on lazy Sunday mornings. The place was quiet, the sound of soft jazz playing in the background, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. It felt surreal, like I was trapped in a dream I couldn't wake up from. Chloe was already there, sitting at a corner table, staring down at her coffee cup. When she saw me, she didn't wave or smile. She just motioned for me to sit down, her face tense. I sat across from her, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing on me. Chloe had been my friend for years, but this was different. She had knowledge of things I didn't, things that could shatter everything I thought I knew. "What's going on, Chloe?" I asked, my voice tight. "Why didn't you tell me before? What are you hiding?" Chloe took a deep breath, her eyes flicking to the door as if making sure no one else was listening. "It's not as simple as you think," she said quietly. "You have to understand. Lena was pushed into this. She didn't want to hurt you. But there were things going on with Max, things you didn't know about." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" She hesitated, then lowered her voice even more. "It's not just about love, William. It's about power, control. Max manipulated Lena. He played her, and he used her for his own gain." I stared at her, unable to comprehend what she was saying. "You're saying Max was using her? For what?" Chloe looked down at her coffee, her face filled with regret. "I don't want to get into everything, but he's been using both of you. It's more complicated than just an affair. Max had a plan, and Lena, well, she got caught up in it. She didn't know how deep it went." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you stop it?" "I tried," Chloe said softly. "But it's complicated. Max is dangerous, William. He's been playing you both for a long time. And now it's all coming to light." My mind spun. Dangerous? Max. I couldn't wrap my head around it. All I could think about was how everything I thought was real was a lie. How could I have been so blind? I sat there, staring at Chloe, the weight of her words pressing on me. Max is dangerous. The phrase kept looping in my head, but the more I thought about it, the harder it was to make sense of. Max had always been my closest friend. Sure, he was ambitious, but dangerous? I couldn't fathom how someone I trusted so deeply could be anything but the guy I'd laughed with, the guy I'd confided in. "You're not making sense," I said, trying to steady my breath, though my chest felt like it was caving in. Max. He's not dangerous. He's my friend. He's never been like that." Chloe shook her head, her eyes filled with a sorrow I couldn't place. "You don't know him like I do, William. You don't know what he's capable of. You think this is all about a woman? About an affair? It's not. It's about control. It's about getting what he wants, and he's been doing it for years." I felt a chill spread through me. What Chloe was saying didn't match up with the Max I knew. He wasn't a manipulator. He wasn't the kind of guy who would play with people's lives like that. Or was he? Maybe I was just blinded by years of friendship, too proud to see who he really was. "Tell me everything," I demanded. My voice was firm, but I could feel the tremor in my hands. "What's going on? What did he do to Lena?" Chloe took a long breath, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Max has always wanted more than just money, more than just status. He wanted power, William. He wanted to control Lena. He found her at a time when she was vulnerable, when she was questioning everything. And he took advantage of that." I leaned forward, trying to keep my voice steady. Why would she go along with it? How could she let him? Because he knew exactly how to play her. Chloe interrupted, her voice low. "He fed her lies, told her everything she wanted to hear. He knew she was unhappy, knew she was looking for something more. And he gave it to her. But it wasn't real, William. He made her believe that what she was doing wasn't wrong, that it was something she needed. And now she's tangled in something she can't get out of." I swallowed hard. "So you're saying she's been manipulated this whole time? That she didn't choose him?" The disbelief in my voice was evident, but I couldn't deny the seeds of doubt that Chloe's words had planted in my mind. Chloe nodded slowly. "Lena was never going to leave you, not if she knew what she was really getting into. But Max, He knew how to break through. He made her think that leaving you was the only way to escape the life she felt trapped in. But it wasn't her choice, William. He controlled her every move. And now, it's all falling apart. And I'm afraid, once it does, it'll be too late for everyone. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I felt nauseous. My best friend and my wife had been playing a game I didn't even know existed. I had been living in a house of cards, thinking it was solid, but now it was crumbling around me. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Why didn't you say something before? Why wait until everything has already fallen apart? Chloe's gaze softened, but her eyes remained sad, almost apologetic. Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make you see it. I thought maybe you would figure it out on your own, but I saw it getting worse. I saw Max pulling her further and further away. And I couldn't stand by and let you keep living in the dark. You deserve better than that. My mind was spinning. Max wasn't just some guy who had an affair with my wife. He was a puppet master, controlling not just Lena, but everyone around him. I had been so blinded by the loyalty I had for him that I couldn't see it until it was too late. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was deep, calculated. I had been nothing more than a pawn in his game. You're telling me Max has been manipulating everyone, and I was the last to know? I asked, my voice breaking despite my attempt to hold it together. How did I not see it? How could I have been so blind? Because you trusted him, Chloe said softly. And trust is the easiest thing to exploit. I leaned back in my chair, my mind reeling. The enormity of what she was telling me, what I had just learned, was suffocating. Max wasn't just a cheater. He was a manipulator, a liar. And Lena? She was caught in his web. But how much of it was her fault? How much had she known? Was she a victim, or had she been complicit in the betrayal? I needed to talk to her. I needed answers from her directly. But even as the thought crossed my mind, I felt the weight of it. Could I face her? Could I even trust her anymore? After everything that had happened, was there any going back? I have to see her, I said quietly, almost to myself. I have to know if she's really the person I thought she was. I have to hear it from her. Chloe looked at me, her expression torn. I don't think you're ready for that, William. I don't think anyone is. But you deserve the truth. And you deserve to be free of all of this. I looked at her, the words heavy in my chest. I don't know if I can handle the truth, but I have to try. With that, I stood up, feeling like a man walking toward an uncertain future. The road ahead was a blur, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about fixing a marriage. It was about fixing myself, about reclaiming my life from the mess they had made. I wasn't just going to let them walk away with everything. I was going to fight for what I had left. The truth was waiting, and I was done running from it. I woke up the next morning to the oppressive weight of everything crashing down on me. I hadn't slept a wink. The same thoughts had circled around in my head for hours. Max, Lena, Chloe, the betrayal. There was no escape. It was as if my entire life had been rewritten in one conversation, and I didn't know how to move forward. The anger that had burned in me yesterday had turned into something more paralyzing, confusion. How could I have missed all the signs? How did I not see that my best friend and my wife had been hiding this from me? I looked around the apartment, and everything felt off. The dishes in the sink, the pile of unread bills on the counter. It all seemed so trivial now. What was the point of any of it? I had spent so many years living in a bubble, thinking everything was fine, when in reality, it was all falling apart behind the scenes. But I couldn't just sit here anymore. I had to do something. The thought of waiting around while they lived their lives, without any consequence, was unbearable. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. The anger surged again, but this time, it was focused. I was going to find Lena, and I was going to confront her. There was no more avoiding it. I couldn't live in this limbo anymore, not knowing what had really happened between them, not knowing what role she played in this betrayal. I grabbed my phone, the screen flashing with missed calls and messages from Lena. She was blowing up my inbox, desperate to talk, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. What was there to say? The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built a life with, had done this. I had trusted her with everything. How was I supposed to even begin to forgive her? I typed a quick message to Chloe, telling her I was going to see Lena. She responded almost instantly, pleading with me to wait, to think about it. But I had made up my mind. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to do this for myself, for my sanity. I drove to her apartment, the familiar route feeling strangely unfamiliar. I was so used to seeing it as a place of comfort, a place I was always welcome. But today, it felt like a foreign land, like I was walking into a battle zone where nothing would be the same once I crossed that threshold. As I pulled into the parking lot, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I parked the car and sat there for a moment, staring at the building in front of me. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind racing with 100 different scenarios. Would she apologize? Would she try to explain herself? Or would she just continue to lie? I didn't know what to expect, and that uncertainty was eating me alive. I finally opened the car door and stepped out, the air feeling cold against my skin. I walked to the entrance, each step heavier than the last, as if the weight of the situation was physically dragging me down. When I reached her door, I hesitated for a second, then knocked. My heart was in my throat, but there was no turning back now. She had to face the consequences of what she had done. A few moments later, I heard footsteps approaching from the other side. The door swung open, and there she was. Lena. She looked as beautiful as ever, but the spark in her eyes was gone. She looked tired, almost defeated, but there was still a coldness in her gaze. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, looking at me, probably trying to gauge what I was thinking. "Can I come in?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. There was no room for pleasantries, no room for niceties. This was about confrontation. She nodded, stepping aside to let me in. I walked past her into the apartment, my mind already racing with what I was going to say. But as soon as I stepped into the living room, the reality of the situation hit me. This wasn't just a casual disagreement, a couple of misunderstandings. This was betrayal on a level I didn't know how to process. "Why?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. "Why him, Lena? Why Max?" Her eyes flickered for a moment, as if she wasn't sure how to answer. Then she finally spoke. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want this." She paused, taking a shaky breath. I was unhappy. I needed something. And Max was there. He listened to me. He understood me in a way that you couldn't. I didn't expect it to go this far. It just happened." I felt a rush of emotions. Hurt, anger, disbelief. But most of all, I felt disgust. "So you're telling me that you couldn't talk to me? You couldn't come to me and tell me you were unhappy? You just ran to him?" Lena's eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't cry. Instead, she wiped her eyes, trying to hide her vulnerability. "I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. I felt like you didn't even see me. You were so focused on your work, your projects. I tried to get your attention, to make you see that I needed something more, but you didn't hear me. Max listened. He cared. And I didn't know what to do." I shook my head, trying to hold back my own emotions. "I worked hard for us, Lena. I did everything I could to give us a future. But you chose him. You chose betrayal." She lowered her gaze, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't choose betrayal. I didn't want this. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said, my voice cracking, the weight of everything crashing down on me. "You hurt me. You lied to me. You let it go on for months, and now you're telling me you never wanted this?" Lena opened her mouth to respond, but the words never came. Instead, she just stood there, looking lost. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her. The woman I had once thought was the love of my life, now a stranger to me. "I don't know what you expect me to say, William," she whispered. "I don't know how to fix this. I can't undo what's been done." I took a step back, the realization settling in. "No, you can't. You can't undo any of this. And I can't keep pretending like it didn't happen." Her face crumpled, and for the first time in the entire conversation, I saw the depth of her regret. But it was too late. "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice barely audible. I turned toward the door, my mind still spinning, my heart breaking. "Sorry isn't enough, Lena. I'm done." And with that, I walked out, leaving the woman I thought I knew behind, and the door closed between us with a finality that left a bitter taste in my mouth. I walked out of the apartment, my heart still heavy, but there was a shift. A quiet, unexpected weight had been lifted. The door slammed behind me with finality, and in that moment, I knew there was no going back. The anger, the hurt, it all still lingered in the air like a storm cloud. But something else, something small but powerful, had begun to settle in. A sense of relief. I had faced the truth. I had heard it from her, from the source. There was no more guessing, no more wondering. The facade was gone, and the wreckage of my life was now laid bare. But that wasn't the end of it. No, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something new, something better. I walked back to my car, not with a sense of defeat, but with something that had been missing for a long time: strength. The kind of strength I didn't know I had. The kind of strength that comes from knowing you've been through hell and you've survived. I wasn't sure where I was going next, but I knew I was going somewhere. Somewhere that would be mine. Somewhere where I could rebuild. The next few weeks were hard, sure. There were moments when the pain of the betrayal hit me, when the loneliness was suffocating. But it didn't last. I started focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I started taking care of my body, running again, eating healthier. I signed up for yoga, something I never thought I'd do, but it helped calm my mind. I didn't need anyone to fix me anymore. I realized I had everything I needed to heal right within me. I took a long, hard look at my life. The parts of it that were good. The parts that I could rebuild. And I started doing just that. The first step was a big one: getting rid of everything that reminded me of Lena and Max. I packed up old photos, letters, gifts, anything that tied me to the past, and threw them out. It was symbolic, sure, but it felt necessary. It was like cutting the last thread that connected me to a life I no longer recognized. I didn't want to live in the past anymore. And for the first time, I realized that was okay. I didn't need Lena. I didn't need Max. I had me, and that was more than enough. I went back to my work, pouring my energy into it with a passion I hadn't felt in ages. I started writing again. Stories, poems, anything that let me express the pain and the freedom I was feeling. I started meeting new people. Slowly, I found myself again. It was like waking up from a long, exhausting sleep, and the world felt more alive than ever. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when I met someone. Her name was Sarah. She was kind, funny, and had this energy that was contagious. We started talking, and the conversation flowed easily. It wasn't like the rush I had once felt with Lena, but there was something special about it. Something real. We met a few more times after that, and I felt myself letting go of the past, little by little. It wasn't about replacing Lena or filling a void. It was about allowing myself the chance to experience something new, something fresh. The idea of love didn't scare me anymore. It wasn't about being perfect or finding the one right away. It was about connection, about finding joy in the little things. And with Sarah, I found that joy. As the months passed, I realized I was finally free. Not just from Lena, but from the idea that my happiness was tied to someone else. I had spent so long holding on to a version of life that wasn't mine, that I almost forgot how to live for myself. But now, I had learned that happiness doesn't come from someone else. It comes from within. It comes from accepting who you are and knowing that you are worthy of love, peace, and joy. I could never go back to the life I had before, but I didn't want to. I was building something new, something better. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with where I was. I was no longer defined by betrayal. I was defined by my own strength, my own resilience, and my own ability to rebuild. And that, in the end, was the most important lesson I learned. Life might throw us off course, but it's never the end. It's just the beginning of something new, something beautiful, something we can create for ourselves.